I'll be interested to hear if you agree with this, but during those rut times when you're sitting there, if you can't figure out the wind to be perfect, you still hunt it because there is so much swirling and stuff that goes. I mean, I think it's important to look at the thermals and look at the wind and understand how that all works. But there are things that are just difficult to explain and that are just going to happen in the mountains.
Welcome to the Just Hunt Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Just Hunt Podcast, episode 26. Today we have Beau Martonik on. Excited for this one. I love to talk to Beau because he is a, fellow Big Woods hunter from a different region, but we compare notes and I feel like we find a lot of similarities and can bounce stuff off each other. It's good. So I'm glad to have you on, Beau.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. I'm happy to be on. It's funny when you and I had to do presentations last year up at Huntstock. Both you and I had almost identical presentations, so we ended up just doing it together.
Yeah. Well, and we were slotted for like back-to-back time slots, so it would have been like the same thing back-to-back. And we're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. I think it worked out pretty well.
Honestly, it made it easier for both of us. It's easier to bounce things off each other.
You know, the other thing is like I think if you're presenting by yourself, you have like things that you kind of take for granted. Like you explain things, but maybe you leave out little parts that you just think are assumed, or like it's like second nature to you. But if there's a second guy there and he's listening as like an observer, he can like say, hey, also this, and that guy has some credibility, so it like makes sense and it people listen. So I think it worked out really well, actually. Honestly, better than I think the ones I've done by myself in the past, so I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Unless you all just completely disagree and like argue, but we didn't.
Yeah, that would be funny.
We did have a few different takes on stuff, but like I definitely understood your takes and like it made sense to me. And I think vice versa, we just had a little bit of a different style, and they both could work. So that just shows.
Yeah, and I guess when I said that, I didn't mean that it was like we were exactly, but it was.
No, it was pretty close.
It was pretty close. We're both. I'd say a little more patient than the average guy, and like look at long-term strategy. I think.
Yeah. What were you guys different
on? Well, I don't know how much different. Where I think one of the things that stood out to me, and it wasn't like a real difference, is I just didn't focus on it as much as I know, Beau, you were talking about running cameras at like different elevations.
Yeah.
On the mountains.
Yes, I remember that.
Not that I don't do that, I do, but I'm less focused on the elevation, I think, and I feel like our bucks just go up and down and like all over the place, and they have a lot of routes like straight up and down. Oh, straight up, yeah, I'd say.
Yeah,
like climbing straight up.
That crossing spot, it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know that I do think. I just think your country is more uniform in how it lays out. Like you have. Our stuff looks like a mess.
Yeah.
And so
like consistent ridge systems.
Like a buck can't stay at the same elevation for very long. He's got to like go around a cliff or like around a boulder field. Like he can't, like he'll run it for like 100 yards and then he's got to go down or he's got to go up and over. So I think out there, your stuff is like, it's hard to describe.
It's got elevation bands at some benches that you could follow for 4 different ridges that'll run around, and that you'll have like some similar stuff. It'll have different bands of elevation and stuff up and down. But I get what you're saying there, and it's like, and it's funny because there's so many different throughout the Appalachian Mountain range, all the way from top to bottom. They all got their little quirks and their little bit 100%. Of differences. It's just. Every place I go to, there's no two the same, and it's just like a little bit of tweaks here and there.
No, you can definitely draw like a lot of similarities in how things work, but to your point, there's little differences in every one, and like we probably put a lot of information out there. People have to realize that like it may not be exactly like that where you're at. You got to try to say, okay, well, our ground's a little different here because of this, but I think in general it was a lot of the same stuff. So for those that don't know you, You're Beau Martonik. You have the East Meets West podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about how that podcast started and how I think it kind of, I don't want to say it took a turn, but it changed a little bit. It wasn't, now it's not what you originally started exactly. It's right. It's changed a little bit.
No, you're actually spot on with that. So I started the podcast in 2018. It's been a little over 7 years now since I started doing this, which is crazy to think about. But I started it honestly for selfish reasons of wanting to learn how to hunt out west. I had been hunting out west for a few years at that point, but I wanted to pick the brains of people that were way better than myself, and that gave me access to people to be able to ask them questions that I may have not been able to, whether it be elk hunting, mule deer hunting, just adventure style hunting out west. And when I started doing a couple of those trips myself, I learned from posting it online that there was, whether it be friends, family, or random people online that were like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish, I had that kind of time or that kind of money. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I had none of that. Like I had 2 weeks of vacation at work, and I was not like in the best place financially, still not, but like I wasn't like in this incredible place by any means. And I was just like, all right, there's other people out there that could benefit from this with a little bit of planning. And I was like, maybe if I put, a headset on, do the podcast, I can help other people while helping myself with trying to learn and plan these things and do it. And it was funny it was in the first year and I didn't really pick up on it then, but I did the first podcast about whitetail hunting, which was probably episode, I think like 16 or 19, something like that. It was a little ways into it, with these guys that were from Pennsylvania as well. And they had done a mountain whitetail film back in 2013, 2014 called Pursuing the Allegheny.
I remember that.
Man, wild at heart. I still talk to those guys all the time, or not all the time, but not as much as I'd like to. But Kelly and Jameson, so anyways, I went and interviewed them, and we did one on Western hunting because they like to do a lot of that. Yeah. And then we just started talking about, mountain or big woods whitetail hunting. And when I put that out there, all of a sudden that episode, did 3x the amount of downloads of anything before that. And I was like, I didn't think anybody cared at all about talking about the big woods because, up until that point, there's very, very little media that was surrounding big woods hunting. It was mostly agriculture, farm country, food plots, all that stuff. And then after learning a little bit, it's like, man, there's 5.5 million hunters throughout the Appalachian Mountain Range that go through there, and a lot of those people are hunting, public land or private land that's, big timbered areas. And it's like, that's how I grew up hunting, and that's how my whole family grew up hunting. So I started like sprinkling in a little bit of that more, and now it's probably become 75-80% of what I do with the podcast and everything else. And I still love doing the Western stuff because I love doing those new things, but it's from a number standpoint, it doesn't do nearly as well.
There's just so many more whitetail hunters. So to your point, I remember when I started hunting mountains back whenever that was. I hunted some medium to biggish woods, hills, and then I was started hunting more bigger stuff. And I remember I was like, are there even freaking deer up there? Really? Up top? Are they living up? And I was like, because I like to break everything down. So I'm like, I'm sure they go up there, but I'm like, are they actually living up there? I was like, and I went and I was looking for content on people that, and there was nothing, hardly anything back then. I was like, well, I guess I'll just have to get my ass up there and figure it out then, if they are up there and they're up there. And I remember thinking to myself, how is there not any content on how these mountain whitetails behave and how they use elevation, and what do they stay up there all year? Do they up there are they mule deer where they're up there in the summer and then come down in the fall? So I had no idea, and I just started learning. And I don't remember if there was even anything really, honestly, like that I found. But if it were me today doing that, it would be like so much information out there. So it's definitely like got way more popular and growing up.
I definitely, it's definitely become a lot more popular now. But I don't think like I don't really know if there's that many more hunters that are doing. I don't know. Because like I look at Pennsylvania, for example, that there's less hunters now than there was 20 years ago. And, you look at YouTube or maybe like during archery season, there's a perceived more, there's more pressure from the looks of it, or maybe guys going deeper, they have more information, more educated, but I don't believe there's more hunters per se, doing that in the woods across the board.
Maybe not. I think back when I started doing it, I used to see so this is the thing. I think, at least maybe it's like this in PA. You'd get guys here too during gun season, going for long hikes, and they'd go through these areas. Same thing for like a tracker tracking a buck. Like you'd get them going through, but the majority of the year there was no one up there, and like I'd never find tree stands, trail cameras, like any signs of people. And I think that was like the difference for me. It's like, I know they go through those places, but like, can I actually like focus like a whitetail game on hunting up in that stuff? And I think more people are doing that now and actually focusing on like running cameras and trying to figure out what these deer are doing. Like, not just during maybe the peak of the rut or during gun season, but the whole season, all season long. So I think that was the difference. Now I find like stuff like people back there and like trail cameras and stands when I never used to. I mean, I telling you, like for the first like several years, like there was no one back there at all. Like I didn't find any sign of people. Of course, like I said, I'm sure there's the random guy during gun season that would take his gun for a long walk, or a tracker, but like I just never saw people like actually like actively like trying to like figure out the deer on camera, scouting, like just didn't see it. So, and now I do. So I think there has been, at least right in the areas that I hunt, and also probably like PA, but like 100% the big woods and the mountain stuff is caught on big time in New England too, ever more so than it ever has, I feel like. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, and that's a good point about like especially the cameras. So I see way more cameras than I do. I mean, I talk about it all the time. We all talk about running cameras and the importance of it, and they're widely available now. They're cheaper to be able to get. I mean, there's a lot more cameras out there, and I've come to learn, at least this is in the areas I've spent time in, it's a lot more perceived pressure than it is pressure per se, especially cell cameras, man. It's like, I love when I see cell cameras, and it sounds really counterintuitive, but it's like, I mean, think about it. You and I talk about this all the time. You only get a buck on camera, maybe, if you get them once a week, you're like on top of them.
Yeah.
And so, and I feel like most people get cameras and they look at it and they're like, waiting for him to daylight and, before they make their move. And then he'll be on camera and he's not there. And they go in and hunt for a few days, get burned out from it, and then they move off. That's what, I'm not saying everybody does that, but I think there's a good amount of people that do that.
Well,
especially if you have a limited time, so you cash all your time in, and then it's
done.
over.
And honestly, I don't think a lot of guys here's the thing, like you can think you're going to go up in a spot and hunt it for a week straight. But like the reality is that most people aren't going to, they think like, I'm going to take the week off and go hunt for a week up in this area. And it's like, man, I haven't seen anything. It's cold. It's a long walk. I'm tired. Like shit. Like maybe I won't sit here for a week. Maybe I'll just bounce to another spot behind the house and go for a short walk. And it's so like, it's a lot easier said than done to go up and hunt in these areas like consistently.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's day, like you get to day like 6 or 7 and you're doing that long hike in. Again, it's cold. You're going to sit all day. You're kind of low on sleep. I question everything about what I'm doing at that point. I mean, that doesn't get any easier. No. And other than the fact that from experience, I know that doing this over and over again has led to having success in it. And that's what, I guess, those experiences help you push through those periods. And I think, like, when it comes to hunting those types of areas, it's got to be more about just killing a deer, because there are much easier places to go just kill a deer or see deer or do that. And I'm not trying to play the whole this is harder than something else, but it's just, it's not the easiest place to go hunt.
No. It's funny because when you do something hard that kind of sucks and you're like, man, that was brutal, and then like the next day you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad, and like a week later you're like, that was awesome, and then 6 months later you're like, I can't wait to do it again. It's kind of like that. Like I went into the woods last week, and I ran through this big area that I hunt, and I was gonna pull some camera, shift from camera, whatever. I was gonna do this big loop. I did 10 miles, and I just remember like up and down and rough and over, and I'm like, I don't remember it being this rough and this hot and this far and this steep. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just like, forget about like that. It's like, but when you do it every day in a row, it's like, you don't forget. Like, it's right fresh in your mind how rough it is. So I just remember, I'm like, man, this is, I look at the map and I'm planning on like, my on hunt stand, and I'm putting like, okay, I want to move that there. And like, I'm studying, I'm like, all right, yeah, that'll be good. I'll just run up through here and run through the saddle and go down like in this whole thing. It'll be like nice and it's like efficient. And then it's like, I'm just drenched with sweat and there's flies and I'm like, my knees are hurting. And like, I'm like, God, dude, I've been out here forever. And it's like, yeah, it's the idea of it is, it's like almost like romanticized, the idea of it, but like when you get down to it, it can be tough. It can be a grind.
Oh, I just thought of just the other day. Oh, actually, just recently, I was like, here's a situation where I make it more in my head than it really is. Like, there's a situation or a place where I hunt that's heavy with rattlesnakes, and it's in the summer. But I was like, I really want to get cameras in there because I'm going to be gone in September. And I'm going to be gone the end of September and the beginning of October. I come back, it's mid-October, and I'm right in it. I was like, I need to get some cameras in there. And I'm like, I've got snake gators and stuff. And I've hunted rattlesnakes. I've been like, it's always the first time I go to do that in the year that I build up this thing. Like, there's these snakes behind these rocks, and like, I'm going to go through the high ferns and they're going to just smash me. And you build up this thing, and then you go do it, and it's not, maybe it's not as bad at all. And then they're like, oh, there's like probably, unless you step on them, they're not going to do anything. Right. But like, you build up these these things in your head. I think what helps me when it comes into whitetail season is typically I have like a Western hunt where I'm hiking a lot and I'm putting on 8-10 miles a day. I come back and it feels a little bit easier going into it. It's still not easy, but it feels easier going into it at that point, versus not. But like, and it's just summertime in general. I just don't love being in the woods, and I hate to put it that way, but it's hot, it's buggy. There's spiders. Every one of them wants to go for your throat.
That is the worst. Other than the deer or horseflies, which when they're bad, they're so bad. I was in the woods. I've been in, I think, 3 days now. This summer, just kind of running through stuff and trying to set stuff up. But I was I don't know. Do you call them? You must have the same thing. Deer flies or horse flies?
Horse flies, yeah.
Horse flies, yeah. Deer, whatever. Same. I think probably similar fly.
Hammer time flies.
They're so brutal.
Yeah.
They were so bad. I got caught in this thunderstorm up on this mountain, and it was like it was raining so hard that my eyes were stinging. Like, I didn't even want to keep my eyes open. I didn't have a hat. I don't know what happened. I just forgot it. And I'm like, dude, my eyes were stinging from getting hit. I was like, it was raining so hard. Like, I'm talking like an inch in like 20 minutes. Like, that hard it was raining. And the flies were still all over my head. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, these things are freaking piranhas right now. I could not believe like how thick they were and persistent. And like, dude, you're going to drown flying around up there. Like, it was crazy. So, yeah, there's stuff like that that's like, it's rough. I don't love the summer either. For me, it's more like, hey, I can take the time, and it's like I can spread it out so I'm not like completely like, gone or like, just not present during the hunting season. So I try to do it when I can. I used to like start July 1st when I was younger and get all jazzed up, and then I definitely backed way off of that. But what I found was that like all of a sudden I was scrambling kind of to get everything in place like right before the season and into the season, and it was like, and I was trying to hunt, and usually we do like an early season trip, so it just became too congested in that time of year. So I was like, well, I don't need to have my cameras out in early July, but like I'll start getting them out when I have time,
Yeah.
Obviously when you got a lot of other stuff going on, it's a challenge, but
Quick side note. Yeah. Are those batteries okay that you got?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Nobody's called you with any issues yet?
No. That's right. Yeah, we had Eric Hansen. Some of those, with batteries you're talking about, that big battery. Right?
Yeah.
He like calls me. He's like, "Hey, these batteries are junk." I'm like, "Oh my god, what are you talking about?" I bought a bunch of them for people,
a
lot of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh no," because I had literally just finished like distributing, like getting them out to everybody, and I was like, oh, and it was kind of a pain in the butt. And I was willing to do it because like I got friends deals, and it was a good price and whatever. And I was like, I'll do it, whatever. Save some money, use a lot of batteries. And I was like, am I going to have to go and get all of these back from everybody and send them back and call the guy who I get them through? I'm like, oh my God. But no, that was it. I haven't had any issues. I don't know if Eric was doing something funky, or he says he wasn't.
He's not the best with technology. But.
Anyway, yeah, that was good.
Just curious.
I know you're out like all year. Here's a question for you on cameras. You have cameras out year round to an extent, don't you?
Yeah.
Are you like monitoring? How do you deal with batteries? Like, that's the other thing I'm always like worried about. I don't want to get them out too early because I don't want to die on the last of the season. And then I'm like, I've kind of figured out that if I put them out mid to late summer, they usually last throughout the season if my settings aren't like absurd. So what is your strategy when you have them on all year? Like, what do you do?
So on a traditional camera, like a non-cell camera, I can get a full year on batteries on. Typically, if I'm going to do that and I don't plan on going back in there, I have it on photo mode. Yeah. On like 2 shot bursts, maybe 3, depending on how many fixtures I think I'm going to get in the area. And then if I get back in there, I want to switch it to video for the fall. But I can typically get a full set on Energizer lithiums. Yep. I haven't had luck with any other batteries. I've tried Amazon lithiums. I've tried like all these other ones. Those ones work best for cell cameras. It's the same way. It's like right about the time of recording this, July 24th, around this mid-July to this time. If I get them out, I should be good through January. Some of them I've had go all the way through March, depending on the amount of photos, and I've had some that die in the beginning of December, depending on how that looks. And what I'll typically do is, at this time of year, I'll put it where I don't have instant send. So I'll just have send the photos once a day. Yep. And then I'll put it down to only sending 1 or 2, not like the entire burst or whatever that I have on there. So I try to go through and change the settings where, it might not be the most conducive, but like I can still get that data later on as far as like pulling from the SD card, like it's on that camera. And then, man, I will say with cell cameras, I haven't used video nearly as much as I used to with regular cameras, and I do miss that unless it's a spot that I know I'm going to be going back into. I just worry of something happening, whether it be a twig or something that goes in there that's causing it to trigger, and then take a 20-second video and just using up that battery a little bit more.
So do you have cells that are out year round?
Yeah, I do.
So do you just like make it a point to go and change those batteries like now?
Twice a year.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was curious.
That's typically what, because I I pulled a bunch this spring, but there was others that I was like, I'm just going to swap them because they're coming back to the same tree anyways. And it's like, okay, I save a month, 2 months. By the time I got around to it to get back to them anyways, it was like turkey season. And I was like, all right, at this point, I might as well just put fresh batteries in it. And I do like where if I can get cameras that'll go through the spring, I wouldn't say I leave all of them out all year. I definitely don't. But I've really come to like looking at the fawn data that I can get in May into June. It's helped me a lot. And like, honestly, this year I had more cells out than I ever had like in that May, June timeframe. And I was like trying to backdate those fawns. It was like, it was showing early breeding in a lot of the spots, which is what I saw when I was in there.
Said the same thing, dude. I was doing the same thing as looking at fawn pictures this year, and it seemed like things happen early. And to be honest with you, the week that I usually like seemed slow last year, and the week before it seemed good. So I don't know. There may be something to that.
Yeah, I mean at least here from October 18th to 31st was like on fire. I mean, from the early 20s in October, and I've never had it like this where there was like nobody in the woods, and it was just like it was like bonkers of deer movement during that time. But we had really good weather during that too.
That's interesting.
What week did John? When did he kill?
Killed the day after I did, the 25th.
Okay.
I believe, yeah.
Yeah, and it was happening.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. This is the first year I've actually left most of mine out all year, and that kind of like made me uneasy. Usually I do like a big run and collect them all. Just because like I don't know, I don't want them to get screwed with like bears and people. Yeah, just like stuff can happen to them. Just the wear and tear of being outside but this year I was like, I just didn't have time. I was like, I can't get them all. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna leave them and try that this year. And so, I've been in the process of just like battery refresh, opening and refreshing and scrapes, and then if I want to pull one or shift one a little bit, I'll do that. But that's kind of what I've been doing, and we'll see how it works. I don't know if I just worry about how long the cameras are gonna last. But I don't know. Maybe that's just a thing. You'd think that if they're their housing's tight, they should be fine. So.
It's one thing that's delayed with me of leaving them out longer is like getting that data, because I like taking all my cards in, dumping them on. I log all the data in Excel spreadsheets and like go through and try to see. Oh,
that's one thing we were different on, by the way.
Yeah, you don't do that.
That was a bit. I can't. It's too much for me. I have to draw the line somewhere.
I've shifted it now with running as many cameras as I do. I don't go to the level of detail as I had in the past, where I did it last year just for the purpose of showing that data to everyone else. Like I did a podcast, but I went through 6 years of trail camera data and logged all of the daylight buck photos and how old I thought they were, and put it on a chart and looked at dates and temperatures and like what did that. And it was really useful information. But typically what I've done in the last 3-4 years is I log the data from bucks I'm interested in, and I plug those in an Excel spreadsheet so that I can like look at weather patterns. And now, I mean, like apps and stuff are helping make that easier. If you're using more cell cameras, it's like you can tag it, add it to a hit list that shows the weather data and stuff there. But that's kind of been and honestly, like the thing I like about it, because like one thing with cell cameras is you get this instant data, but I forget sometimes what I'm getting. And I noticed that like I had made I don't know if I talked about it in my podcast or I made a post when I shot the buck I did in Pennsylvania last year. I was like, I never had them on camera, nothing. I went through SD cards. I didn't have them a lot, but I had them 3 different times.
Okay.
And I didn't even remember. And it's like, that's pretty bad, because I was just like, I'm just getting all these photos in, and you're looking at them, especially when it's like hunting season and stuff, and you're getting intel, and you can forget it. So I think it's also a good refresher for me to go back through that stuff, and it helps me remember dates, times, weather, things that help me pick things up.
I think it can be super helpful on a specific deer, and I also think when you're in a new area that you haven't hunted, whether it's a new region, new state, or even just a new pocket, like a new county, we'll say, I think it can be helpful to figure out kind of the tendencies in that area. But I feel like after a while, it's like, okay, like I kind of know. I know what the dates are usually good. I know the areas are good. I know when you start to, and then I feel like at that point, you can, because I've got like this before, but it can be like so much that you like you just like overthink everything,
right?
And you're just like, all right, like this is a great scrape on a great travel corridor, and the date's right. Like just go sit it. Like go spend time in the woods. So I've been trying to balance that too.
Yeah.
And the other thing is being, this is where it can help you, but being like almost like hunting before, using that data, and we talk about it all the time, but using that data to like predict what's going to happen. Like maybe that buck hasn't hit that scrape in daylight yet, but you're like looking at the dates and the weather, and you're like,
yes,
man, last year he hit it on October 30th or November 1st, but like it's October 23rd, but like we have a really big cold front, and 3 days ago he's there at like 10 o'clock, and like this, you're like, you want to be there the first time they do it, and I think you can use some of that information to clue you in, but you can't just blindly follow stuff. You have to.
Know what's interesting is this was, I don't know if you talk about this at all, but I talk about it with my buddies and friends a lot about how cell cams can mess with you. Like we talked about, like chasing those daylight photos, and like as much as I want to sit here and say that, it still messes with me of like, oh, nothing's been here. So it was funny last year. I don't know, it was like this switch in my head where I would look at that historical data when things were going, and when I didn't have anything, it made me more excited to go hunt it because I knew something was going to show up, and I was getting ahead of, and I had the best year I had ever as far as having encounters that time of like being there when it actually happened, not being there after it already happened. And like that's where I think that data and stuff, like, and there are some areas that I've hunted for so many years that I know it's like, okay, first does tend to come into heat that last week of October. I need to be in there then, the big boys. And then they're typically not seeing some of the bigger bucks that first week in November. And it's like, okay, second into the third week, they show back up again. And it's from personal sightings, camera data, but like you learn this stuff. And honestly, over a decade and I'm thinking of one spot in particular, it hasn't changed. And the biggest bucks of the area that move in, one will die off, get killed, whatever happens. The next one moves in, he tends to go on similar tendencies as far as when he shows up and does things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. At some point, it's like, do I really need to go crazy with the data? Or I just need to like, hey, got a picture of a really good buck. He's in there. Had him last year. Know a couple things about him. Go hunt him. Like that type of thing. Like,
Yeah. I know we had talked with Steve Shirk a couple weeks ago whenever he was on, just about his camera studies and what he had found. I'm just curious, you said you were talking about?
Yeah, that's good. I was actually
time of day and weather and all of those things. What were the biggest factors that you noticed?
Or like, did you find out anything that was like pretty clear, or like maybe you didn't expect, or?
Let me pull that up. I have the spreadsheet here just so I don't misspeak on it. Let me pull that up just so I don't. All right. So on this is, I guess, 4 years of data. I said 6. I was wrong. 2020 to 2023, it was like 2.5-year-olds were 2.5 plus. So I had the way I did my data was 2.5 plus. So that would also include the 3 and 4-year-old deer, and then I did 4.5 plus to be able to look at it. The 2.5, there always seemed to be a spike of daylight activity around like the 17th to 20th of October typically associated with cold fronts that were like around those dates where I'd see like a little bit of a curve there. And then again, the end of October into Halloween. And then like 1st or 2nd of November, you'd have that spike, and then it'd be kind of about the same again. And then middle of the month, about the 14th, jump back up again, and then kind of just stay steady. And then towards Thanksgiving, another bump that will go up. And it stayed pretty like those trends were pretty similar as far as the older age classes of deer too, just less of them.
Yeah.
A lot less of them.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny through so many, I wish I had like how many photos and stuff that it was analyzed there, but like a good day over 4 years of a 4.5-year-old, more like picture wise, would be like 5 pictures, you know, like in daylight.
That sounds like a great day.
Yeah. And I'm talking through like 40 some cameras.
Yeah.
Like that's just showing that it's not, you know, in November, there was a few days where I had some, actually November 2nd was the most that I had for 4.5 years plus in daylight. I had 12 photos, but there was
over
a
4 years.
Over 4 years old. That this is me judging
in
from
4 years time too, not on
in
1
4
year,
years
right?
time. So yeah, so that'd be an average of what, 4 or 3 a year, whatever.
Yeah.
But there was 1 year, and I looked at it because it was like that was a decent amount higher. The next closest was 8, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is that? But that day there was 1 year, I think it was 2020, when there was a snowstorm the day before, and that day after just opened up. So sometimes weather throws but honestly, looking at it, it was kind of your traditional bell curve. But where I found the most useful information wasn't with the dates; it was the time of day, with the movement. So that was another thing I plotted. October, it was 8 to 9 a.m. was a more of a pretty big time there, and then last light, obviously. And then as you get in November, 8 to 9 was the biggest time frame when bucks were in there. The next one being 10 to 11, and then noon to 1.
Yeah.
And then the last one was right before dark. But like that mid-morning time frame was more so than even at first light when it came to the rut time frame for me.
Did you have much, say, what time does it get dark out there during the rut? 5:30, something like that?
5:30, yeah.
5:30.
5 at the end of like mid to late November.
Did you have much, say, between 2 and 4:30?
No.
Okay. I feel like that is the most dead time during the rut.
Yeah.
It's like mid-afternoon till like just before sunset. Like I almost just like want to take a nap or something.
100%. It's funny. That's exactly what it shows here. I'm looking at the chart, and it's funny because my whole plot when it comes to hunting the rut is if I'm tired, I sleep in, and I'll go in, like I'll walk in at first light or a little after and get in. And I still don't think it's a bad ploy from looking at it, but I'm cutting it close per the data where like I'm almost like, man, I should hunt until like 1 o'clock and then just like curl up in a sleeping bag, take a nap, and then just hunt that last hour of the day.
I've been thinking about trying to do a abbreviated program to make it a little more enjoyable and sustainable. Like I really have, like
get like a hammock or something.
I've even honestly thought about hunting till 2:30 and or 3 o'clock and
just calling
it because like I can think of like Ross and I and whoever has hunted with us, and I think I killed that one buck there in the afternoon. I also could have killed him a couple hours earlier. Or before, I should say, but I just meant he came back through. But I don't know. I don't know that we've even killed one like in the afternoon. Most of them are literally from like 7:30 a.m. to like 1 o'clock. Like it's like all morning into the afternoon, and then it seems like it just slows right off.
I've killed more deer between 12 and 12:30 than I think just about any time. It's like I used to do this thing where I'd sit all day, and it'd be noon would be my time to go down and check my camera that was in front of me, because I had this rule I wouldn't check my camera on the way in if there was a camera in front of me. So because I didn't want to be discouraged if things weren't on there and I'm sitting up there all day, just, so that'd be like my treat, midday I get down. But I've had it before where I'm like, getting down off the step and here comes a deer, something coming in. So I like stop doing that. So now I have to trick the deer, I either go in like down at 1 or I go a little bit earlier. But I mean, now, with more cell cams and stuff, it's not as much the same. But the only deer I've killed in the afternoon, not at last light, but like that 2 o'clock range, was this deer that I have here behind me. Yeah, that was in Ohio though, so it's a little bit. Literally, I showed up, drove there, got there at 1 o'clock, killed him at 2 o'clock, and the first day there, I was lucky. But
that's crazy. Yeah. I want to say though, I guess we said that I did kill that deer, and I'm trying to think.
Where was that?
That was the same. Across the valley from Lefty, or across the ravine up on that other peak there. Yeah. I will say though, I've got enough pictures to say that you probably should just stay in the stand all day. Like if you really like want to maximize your time, I'm talking about now. I'm just kind of like, almost like I'm ready to do like the like easy program type of thing where it's like, I'll just take it easy and hunt a little bit. But I think if you want to be hardcore and you really want to maximize your chances, you probably got to be there all day.
There's no escaping that, especially during the rut when we like to hunt the most. The more time you're on the stand, there's always a chance of something coming through, and it's like thinking of a normal person and the way I was for a lot of years, where I'd have maybe a week that I could take off. I wanted to maximize every potential moment. Now I have more flexibility where I can hunt more, which is incredible. But there's and I'm not complaining about it, but I have to like kind of figure out a little bit, or sitting 4 weeks of dark to dark. One, I'd forget there'd be some bills that weren't paid. But two, just trying to be able to maximize that time that you spend out there.
So one of the things I did, I think I've talked about it a few times. We really should do a podcast on it, but I did a little trail camera study back, must have been 16, 17, 18 time frame. Mm-hmm. And I was really like starting to figure out that like these deer in the mountains I suspected, I was like, man, it seems like it's better later in November, but I would just always hear about first week of November, and people would like, our muzzleloader season opens in New Hampshire the first week of November, and a lot of the Maine's rifle season opens first week of November. So it's like a happening time. Obviously, there's a lot of good deer killed because it's first times guns are in the woods, and like you hear about the first week. And I think in the Midwest, and even sometimes towards you too, I think it can be maybe some of the best stuff potentially. But I just like wasn't seeing or getting pictures of like, it just didn't seem like that was it. But then I'd have this crazy spike of like big buck midday in my head, and I was like, I don't know if it's true, but it seemed like it was like the third week, and I was like, there's got to be something to this. And I wasn't looking at any trail camera data, so I went back from like 5 years, and all my trail cameras, Ross's trail cameras, I got like, I think 3 or 4 other guys that like hunt the big woods and run a lot of cameras and are pretty serious about it. And I said, hey, I'm like, I don't need you to send me your I'm not asking for your trail camera pictures, but can you go through your stuff and categorize every deer 4 and older? I think I did October 15th to like December 15th. And I said, and just tell me the date and the time. And so I made a chart. And basically my goal with this was to find out when me being in the woods all day, every day, day after day, was the most effective. Like, I don't want to sit all day if like there's a 5% chance that a deer is going to move at 1 p.m., like on October 3rd or something like that. And so I actually got rid of all the first light and last light pictures, because I feel like you can have that the whole season. And I just did like, mid-morning. I think I did like 9 a.m. to like an hour before dark. And
those are the days that you keyed in on.
Those are the times I keyed in on, because I'm like, that's when you're sitting all day. Like that's when you have vacation, when you can sit all day. So like, when does it make the most sense? And it was like super clear. It was like the third week of November, and which is what I kind of thought, and I was suspecting, but I was like, well, let me get some actual data to like back that up, so it's not just a theory. And I put it all together. It was like so clear. It was like, holy crap! It was just like it just peaked, and I was like, well, there it is, and that gave me so much confidence going forward to go and sit, because I'm like, okay, I have all the data, like historically for like this whole region, and then I know a particular buck, so I'm like, I'm good. And so like having that type of information, I feel like gives you so much confidence to be able to execute, like, and follow through.
You said that this past season stuff seemed like it was early.
Yeah, and that's the first time I've seen anything like that, to be honest with you, since probably for almost 8-9 years, something like that, since I've been really paying attention.
It's funny because I haven't finished going through my data from last season yet, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, I've got to have an asterisk next to this, because I don't think that's like it was more of a anomaly, almost like taking that stuff and almost seemed like 5 days early on some, which is kind of a big swing. Typically I would see, like, okay, I'll give you an example. This spot that I know, this community scrape, I've run a camera there for 10 years. I know this spot like the back of my hand. It just so happens it's a good spot where there's a newer logging cut there now.
Yeah.
So I can run a solar panel. That camera just freaking runs. Like, it just runs, year round. And I have so much data at this spot. And it's like October 27th to 31st. If I'm not sitting there, there's a problem. Well, this year, it just so happened with the weather that I was like, I need to be in there earlier. And it was crazy. Around the 18th, there was a spike, and then, which there kind of typically is just for the couple bucks. But then, like, I ended up missing the biggest deer that I ever shot at there on the 25th of October. And I believe typically it's like another 5 days before a buck like that. And it was an absolute rut fest of one doe came through, and I saw 3 of the biggest deer that I had in the area. The one that I missed was snort wheezing at the other one that I had a clear shot at, and I would have shot any other day, but I wanted him. And then I misjudged the yardage, and I shot under his armpit. But and I was just, it was just like a wild situation. But it was just like, that was a scenario where, like, when I'm looking at those dates, and this last year really told me with it, because I always looked at, okay, weather patterns within a few days, but it's like sometimes can be almost even up to a week. Weather just can do so much for that movement. Yep,
I totally agree. Yeah, I think I've got more comfortable over the years of like just making, like, looking at everything, like, not like dwelling on it, like, all right, this is historically when the scrape is good. I know I have this deer in the area, this types of dates. Usually he's here October 25th. Hey, it's October 19th, but we have a major cold front, and he's already kind of like made himself known maybe a couple times. I'm like, I think I'm going to hunt it. I'm going to jump in there early and like bank on like him doing, and it's like being able to do that, I think, is like, I just don't want people to get so tied to the data and tied to like, that's where I think you get hurt. And like, it can be a little bit different, and some things can shift year to year. So you got to kind of like look at your historical stuff, look at your real-time stuff, look at the weather, and then kind of go with your gut.
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, even when I was doing this trail camera like study over 4 years, and really I didn't go back any further just because I didn't have the time to go through all of it. But I think the more time period you can have, you can account for that, because there's so many things that can throw off historical data, like whether it's major hot spells. There was a time, and like I was telling you, in 2020, that first week in November, we had snow. Well, then it went into a major from like the 7th through the 15th was like 75, 80 degrees. And then we had the first week in November, or end October, and the first week in November was like that in 2022. So it's going to be slower. So like when you look at that puts a play into a mass crop. If you're in an area that's heavily reliant on mass crop, that can change that historical data. And that's where a lot of the times why a lot of my rut spots, I specifically choose places that don't rely on mass crop, that have a bunch of browse, things because I see those consistencies more so year after year where the does are laying out, where they're bedding, where they're feeding, more so than anything else. And that's where I put more emphasis on the historical data than anything else.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. That's spot on. There's just can be big shifts. But if everything's pretty even and has unchanged, I think those things are super strong, those annual patterns. And yeah, it's interesting to see. I'm almost thinking now I should go back, look at that study again, and then almost compile my data from when I did it till now.
Yeah.
And put it. Honestly, up until this year, I didn't even think about it because it was so freaking consistent and like dead on. I was just like, yep, there you go. And then I'd get people sending me pictures of bucks, and I'd be like, oh. And I'd look at the dates and I'm like, yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
Like noon on like November 20th, yep, that's right, spot on. But like this year was just kind of like, what the heck, kind of weird it felt like.
What did you see when, even stuff that you didn't necessarily log, but just you look at trail cameras a lot, but do you feel like during that time of year there's less bucks moving? Is that, again, with your region, we're in different regions, so I don't know if it changes that much, but is it like the tail end of like where they're looking for does again, like they already went through kind of a breeding cycle a little bit? Or?
I'm gonna throw it last year.
Okay.
But no, I think this is the other thing that threw me off. So UNH did a study. Actually, what's his name? Mark Fortin? I don't remember the guy's name. He's the leader of the Vermont Deer. I think he's like the head biologist for Vermont Deer program. I should remember his first name. Anyway, he did his like master's thesis at UNH, and it was on breeding dates of whitetails. So he went and did a study where he went and collected roadkill does throughout New Hampshire and basically backdated to, what they do is they measure the fetus, and it should be this big if it's, was born on whatever, and they compile all that data. Well, I had heard about this. I knew about the study, but like it gave such a broad range, and I was like, there's got to be more in that data than the summary of the study. And I don't think the purpose of the study was to identify when like the peak breeding was. It was like to identify, I think, like a range more or less or something. I don't want to speak for obviously him, but anyway, I got in touch with him and I said, hey, would you mind sending me your raw data from that study? And he did. And so I took it and I put it in my own chart. And then I took all my daylight data and I put them in the same chart on a graph, and it was like they mirrored perfectly the conception dates. So you would think there'd be some lockdown phase where their peak breeding is and you're not getting many of those pictures. Well, I just didn't see that. It like literally peak breeding and peak daylight activity was the same. It was the same thing. Like it was spooky when I put them up together. I was like, and that was another thing that confirmed for me, okay, there's something with these dates and how this is going. So
that's interesting.
I thought it would be. I just don't know. Maybe in the big woods, I don't know. There's less does, so there's less lock. I have no idea. I don't know. It's tough to say. Like that's stuff I can make assumptions on, but I can tell you that, providing his data and his study was accurate, which I don't know how they did it. I assume he's a wildlife biologist at UNH, a state leader, and he did a study. I assume it's pretty legit, right? Like I don't know. And it wasn't like a huge study. Like there wasn't. I think there was maybe like 200 data points or something like that. I think they did it over 2 years too, so it wasn't just 1 year, which could skew it. Obviously, even 2 years could be skewed. So, but yeah. I will say, like it was, they mirrored each other perfectly, and I was like, okay, well, there's nothing to think about anymore then. So,
yeah, and I did want to say too. So one thing I've noticed in the areas that I hunt, and this is very specific to certain areas, but the doe population has grown. In
really?
2 years, it's like, it went from me not seeing deer for days, and there's still, you can have those days, but there are more does now, and I hate it because I feel like it's making the rut harder because those deer, and it's honestly, it's made where in the last couple of years of looking at things, it's like the biggest of the big deer, that end of October when they're looking for that first doe seems like a really good time. And then that third week in November into Thanksgiving is like the next time. And we don't have that even open for the most part as far as in Pennsylvania. Ours closed like the end of the third week now. We never even used to have that. But then, you know, it opens up whenever it depends on when Thanksgiving falls really for how our seasons go. But it's I think you have better rutting action when you have less does, you know, more buck-doe ratio. They're moving more, they're doing things. But I feel like my strategy in the last few years has had to focus more on specific doe groups than sitting in some of the funnels as much. It's just made for slower times versus like using that data for trying to hit those doe groups. But I don't know.
Got to start whacking a couple does way back up.
I'm not trying to overthink it, but like it's definitely something that I've seen enough and talking to enough people in the areas that I was at that things are shifting and changing a little bit. And I think having more does is not a good thing.
I think that makes a big difference. I really do. I really do. We don't have many does. I think our population probably in New England is up. Like it's strong right now, but it's still, well, I don't even know if I saw a doe last year hunting.
Really?
Do you remember seeing a doe?
I saw one getting chased with Ross by like $2.
Yep. Did you guys see any other does?
We hunted the swamp, saw like a spike or a 4-pointer.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw.
No, I don't. I mean, I honestly don't think I saw a single doe all year. I'm not kidding. Like I don't.
Dude, yeah, that's.
I mean, obviously, I'm talking like I hunted other places that I saw doe. Like I'm talking the big woods mountain type stuff, but I don't think I did. So I think we still have that, and I think that's probably why we see that strong, really strong, defined third week. And like I don't know. Like I feel like they move all day. They have no problem walking through open hardwoods at noon on November 18th. Like, it's pretty wild, I feel like. Where I think some places they're just a lot more does. They don't have to do that. They don't have to take those risks. They don't have to run themselves to death. So, I think that makes a difference.
You know, I want to hit on your point you just said about the open hardwoods thing. So that was something. It's funny. I do the scouting camp every spring, and I've got some other presenters that come in from different areas, even different areas of the state. And I'm gonna have to talk to them about like the doe side of things, because there'd be spots that me and my dad would pick to hunt that these guys would be like, I wouldn't hunt here. It's too open. And it's like, dude, like during the rut, like this is a freaking banger spot. Yeah. And it's like, what do you mean it's too open? And it's like, okay, if there's a spot where there's a bunch of thick cover there, maybe the edge of it, yes, that's probably a better spot than just randomly in the open. But I'm talking, good funnel scrapes that are in some of these hardwood areas. It's like I've seen them go through there and consistently on it, and it's just funny how, again, territories on how things change. And now, like early on, I definitely think cover is extremely important. And if I have a choice of cover, no cover, I'm going to choose cover. But like that, I wouldn't put it past on certain situations like that.
I sometimes almost prefer to hunt more open areas during the rut, honestly. I feel like I can observe more stuff, and also we can gun hunt during the whole month of November, so that's helpful to be able to see more than 30 yards. Honestly, a lot of the spots we set up are for that, and like we've shot a lot of our deer in the woods, but like we shoot some of them 50, 60, 70, 80. I mean, I think Ross has shot a couple over 100. I shot that buck there at 90. So like we set it up because we can use that. And I mean, a lot of them, I just said those shot distances in the timber and that's pretty far. Like that's a pretty open area if you can shoot that far, right? So that just clues you in. I don't know. The open thing, I think the higher you get to away from stuff. And the deeper you get, the less they care about being in the open. And I think that they feel safe because of their location to move there. And I think that thick cover is less of a lack of thick cover is less of an issue. I think you probably need some of it, like in any spot, but like I don't think they're like gonna like, oh, I'm never coming out of this thick like hemlock or this thick cut or spruce or whatever it is.
Yeah. That's and one of the spots I think of that's open underneath it is like hemlock. Sometimes you get these big hemlock areas. It's like kind of wide open underneath it, and that's the biggest archery buck I killed was in a spot like that. Just big hemlocks, wide open underneath it, and that was in the beginning of October, and he came through that and felt safe. Like
I'm thinking of a spot right now that actually got the buck I hopefully will run into this fall, like last week. But it's this big, there's a swamp in the bottom, and there's this big side hill, and then there's a kind of a plateau. It's lower. It's not like up on a mountain. It's like kind of down in the low ground, but there's a big cut up there. But it's this big open hemlock side hill, and you can literally sit there and see the whole thing. And you can like it's just big hemlocks and white. Is it white pine too? I think it's mostly hemlock. And that thing is like. Some years it's just on fire. Like I sat there for like 5 days one year hunting one buck in that same side hill. And it's open, but they run right through it, like right across the open stuff for like a good ways too. Like you can see them coming and they just go right through it. So maybe if you're on like, pressured public land and smaller stuff in like, I don't know, Jersey or something, like, yeah, maybe they're not going to go through that stuff. But
so you just described like that exact spot where I killed that deer. Although I did kill him in the bottom, but this side hill every year during gun season, I would have these big deer working this side, and it's open. But what I learned was one year I had a buck tag going in there. I was like, I'm going to go in there and hunt. Well, all of the people were on the top because it was cut and it was open, so they could put their ladder stands, they could see a long ways and stuff. And I think that even though that was kind of open, but on that side hill for whatever reason, and there wasn't a good way to hunt out of a tree in it, so like you kind of had to hunt on a ground to see. You could, if you're on the ground, you could see underneath it all. You got up in a tree, it didn't really give you much of an advantage, and it was just like they felt safe with it. And it's like, there's so many times I think we can overthink, like, all right, you need to be so thick or nasty you can't get through it. And maybe sometimes that is the case, but I try to, when I'm going through things, of just being like, if you say I see a big track and you're just like, okay, is this daylight or is this or would this be at night? And it's like, what would make this feel? Would he feel safe here? Would I feel safe? And just kind of looking around at the area and make assumptions, and you can be wrong with it, and that's where it helps, like learning those spots, like learning those areas like you're discussing there. I think over time helps you so much.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you too from like just tracking deer. Like I remember that straw man when I killed him, he bedded and it was on a side hill. He was right on like a flat, but literally like it was. He had just got up out of his bed when I caught up to him and started to feed, and he was on like this lip here, right? Bedded like right on this flat, but it was like 100+ yards down through open hemlock. And he came straight up it. So if he was sitting there, he could just walk he would have seen me coming from over 100 yards away and been like, gone. But he just happened to get up and start feeding, so he couldn't see down over it. He kind of headed like up. He was still on that same flat, but he was far enough into it that he couldn't see back down. And I remember when I came up to the bed, I was like, man, I had no shot. And I thought I bumped him, but I hadn't. He just had got up and started to feed. But like you think about that, he was in the wide open. Like there was no thick cover there, like none, like not even close. And he bedded there, and he ran all the way through up there in daylight because I was on his track at first light. So I think it depends where you're at, but like I don't really focus too much on thick cover really. I mean, it's nice to have around, right? You could have some of it, I think, but like I don't a lot of these mountain bucks, I don't think they're worried about security cover, per se. I also don't think they like to bed a lot of the times with stuff like this in front of them. I think if you're in farm country and they have to stack a bunch of deer in a small little area and they want to be in that stuff to feel isolated. But I don't think they do, man. I've found so many buck. I mean, even Lefty.
Yeah.
That wasn't that thick in there at all. It was open down below. I mean, it wasn't a thick area, and he was in there bedded.
Just
like
up there
just
snoozing.
up in, that was a oak, mountain knob.
Shirk and I have talked about that before because we've talked about like finding certain beds and him knowing, he has a lot of data and he's like, I know this buck was laying in this bed, and I think there's one he shot out of the bed like that in rifle season, but like in some of those open spots. Now I'll tell you a spot that this past year I have a scouting video coming out on it because it was just super unique where there was like these pines that were in the center of just thicket all around, but the pines were open inside of it.
Yeah.
So they'd lay on the high spots, not just on the edge of it because it was so thick that it was like a wall. They'd sit back a little bit where they could see even 40, 50 yards. And it was like, dude, it's a bull. I looked at that so hard of figuring out how to try to hunt it. And I have a couple of ideas, but I don't know if I can even get in there without blowing them out. And it just so happened that last year we pushed it out on a wind bump drive with my family, and that's how I found it originally. I was going through, and the year before I had Johnny Stewart with me, and he's like, hey, you need to go check out those pines sometimes. You walked through those before? I said no. He's like, looks pretty good. So next year I was going through putting this drive on, and I came across a big bed and a track going. So it just so happened the way I was going on the drive, I was backtracking it, and I started going down, and I found this huge rub that was shredded on top of the snow. So that would have been, I think it was December 5th or 6th. And he'd made that rub and then went into bed, and then he slipped. I don't know if he heard us and he slipped out. It didn't look like he was running. He just kind of moved out to a different area, dropped down. But it was funny. I went back in there this spring. I found, I don't know if it's his. This is, me and my assumption, but I found a matching set of the biggest deer that I had in there right there next to that bed. And then I found, I've been getting pictures of them this summer in multiple spots, one of them being in there again because there is a bunch of browse and stuff around there. But it's just, and I've just seen like in that late season that them going back, like to me, it doesn't seem like there's anything else that keeps them there during the rut of there's other spots I found, but I make that mental note of, last 2 years in gun season, we went in there and we've shot 2 bucks out of this area. And it's like, if I have a gun tag or anybody else I know does, I know the spot to go to.
Yeah.
And either whether you're sitting or whether you're doing kind of a wind bump drive or something through there, it's a spot they hole up, and it's honestly like, okay, you got the thick cover around it, you have those pines in there, but it's just one of those spots. It's the deepest spot in the area. And gun season, there's freaking the Orange Army of guys of 20 people pushing drives, doing there next to the roads. And it just seems like, because I've left cameras in there now for years through gun season, and they show up there. I've actually got a video of a buck on a scrape where you can hear a gunshot in the background, and it's opening day of gun season, and he's hitting a scrape at noon, in this general area of going in there. And it was an old, 6.5+ year old deer. He just felt comfortable in that particular location.
How far can they see in there to the thick?
Into the thicket?
Well, okay, so there's how much open is between, so there's obviously layers, right? You said it's thick and then it opens up. So how far from where you think they lay to the edge of the thick where they can no longer see through it?
50 yards.
Okay. Yeah.
50 yards or so.
Yeah.
Honestly, that area is so thick in general, most of it, that's
super open.
That's a pretty open spot in there. It's just one of those places that's been overrun by just kind of invasive stuff that's just like bushes and brush type things. It's not a normal type of area. I gotta be a little bit careful on how much.
All good. I gotcha. I think that a lot of these bucks value like a visual advantage over like thick. I really do. That's my theory. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about thick security cover, and you got to be in the thick. And I just like, I don't know if that's necessarily true everywhere.
It's and it's funny because I've done pendulum swings on this topic in my own personal thoughts. And then I think it's so dependent. I think pressure definitely 100%. Can dictate that because, so I'll give you an example where I shot my buck last year's November 1st. And so I told you about missing that big one on October 25th. On the 27th, I went to a completely different area and had what would have been the second biggest buck I ever seen come out. I had it in the video of my dad. I don't know if you watched that.
I remember you telling me about it. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and he came out when my bow was on the ground. But that was on when I was climbing down. I had to leave to go do some filming stuff. But anyways, I don't want to relive that. But I was hunting on the edge. There was like a real steep hill that came off, and there was a clear cut on the top, and there was like a 40-yard wide bench. And I was sitting there, and there was like a big ass community scrape about 30 yards to my right on the edge, and that's where I was sitting at. He came out pushing that doe, and then from that period on, I sat there the next 4 days, and I never saw another deer, but I had people hunting around that cut. I had the Mad Rattler, I called him. He comes in, he's just slamming. He sits all, he comes in at like 8 in the morning and leaves at like 4. He leaves right when things are getting good in the evening, but he's just up there and he's slamming stuff. And I was like, all right, I need to figure out what to, I was like, I need to change my game plan. People are hunting outside. People are starting to take their vacation that end of October time frame. And I was like, and there's this giant clear cut there. It's just thick as can be. And I saw the winds were going to get up like 20 mile per hour plus. And I was like, I'm going to go on the ground and just go in that clear cut and just call and just sneak through. And I ended up going in. I was in the middle of that thick. I shot the buck that I killed at 9-10 yards, calling him on the ground. I actually bumped him out. I think I bumped him and the doe out of the beds, but they just heard me. They didn't smell me. And they just kind of were wandering around, and I hit on the grunt, and then all of a sudden that doe came running in, bleating, and then I heard burr, burr, and he came in back, and then I shot him like 1/4 right on the shoulder.
That's awesome. Nice.
But that was a situation where they were in that thick pretty heavy, maybe because he was locked down with that doe, maybe because of the pressure, I don't know, but it was like nasty in there.
I just
always and never, can't put those two together.
I just thought of something I wanted to ask you, and I've been like thinking about. We got a lot of questions about this too. So what spurred my memory was we're talking about betting in the open with visual advantage. Well, I went into an area, that 9-mile, 10-mile day I told you about. It was actually the first one, so I was super fresh and optimistic because I just got in there. But it was up on this big peak, though, like damn near the top, so I was doing all right. But it was early, so I was still energetic. But anyway, I jumped a big buck, like right next to where I had a camera and scrape on like, I feel like it's a type of scrape that like a big buck, it's not that type of scrape. It's an area where a big buck would bed, and it had a scrape in there, and I feel like it's one he'd bed and like hit it in the morning and get up and move. Like it's a scrape that's tight to where I can see one laying. And then I had some decent pictures on it last year, and then I went up in there and this buck is laying like right next to it, like in velvet. And I thought that was interesting. I thought it was good. It's like, okay, yeah, that's doing exactly what I thought. But then I'm thinking to myself, and I've been thinking about this a lot, I feel like I have a pretty high percentage of bucks that like aren't really shifting out of their summer range very much. Like I have them like as soon as I put cameras out through like the end of the season, and I'm like thinking about, I already have, I think, like at least half of the bucks that I think I will have to hunt November in July with the limited cameras I have out already. And I used to think that a lot of them shifted, but it seems like maybe as I run more cameras and get better at these areas and like get better at knowing where they're going to be, like, I don't know. I know some of them for sure shift, but I'm like one deer that I was like, I don't think I had him until October last year, and he's like going to be a good one. He is a good one this year. I got his picture where I didn't get him in October and like last week, and I was like, oh shit, I thought he shifted here like from miles. No, I had him right there in velvet, and it's like making me wonder do you see what percentage of your deer do you think summer and fall range in like the same general area?
I think at least half of them.
Yeah.
Are I don't know if I could put an exact number to that because I feel like I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And I think you can be just off and think that he's coming from 2 miles away when he's still there. So like, I'll give it an example. A deer that I had been hunting the last few years, I thought he didn't show up to the area till mid-October because I wasn't getting pictures of him. Talked to another guy that hunts the same area, but it's just slightly off of where I'm at. And he had pictures of him all summer. And it was like not that far at all.
Yeah.
And that they were in there, and it made me really think. Now, one time, like if I get a picture of a buck in August that comes through just one time, I know he's going to be coming back there during the rut. It's almost like that's a rule that if I see that, I'm like, all right, he's going to be coming back. Or sometimes I'll get him in August and they stick around, through September and October and there. But it's like, especially you find areas that have everything they need. It's like, why do they need to shift? If they've got food there, they've got security, they've got does, it's like, what's the point in going on a, summer vacation? It's not like they can go down to Florida where it's like nicer in the winter. You know what I mean? Like they gotta, they're kind of getting the same thing over here and there. So I used to think that there were more deer that didn't live in the area than I do now. Now I think of like, if you get an area when there were places that used to run mineral sites, when I was able to run mineral sites, I would get, a bunch of mature bucks on an area. And typically within that square mile area after that, only a few of them would stick around. But I think that food was pulling in deer that wouldn't naturally be there in the summer. And now that you can't do that in a lot of areas, and I'm focusing cameras on scrapes and things, if I get them in the summer, I think a lot of times they're sticking around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking more and more that they're there. Like the bucket kill last year, I never had him in the summer one time. I think he shifted from a ways away. But like I said, I already literally, it's like, oh, there's that guy this summer. Oh, I didn't expect to have, I'm like, oh shit, they're all like, he's there. It's like, and like quickly too. Like I put the camera out, I got a picture of him like within like 3 days. So I'm like, oh, there he is. It's like, Jesus. I'm like, this is crazy. I feel like it never used to be like that. So yeah, I think I've got like 5 or 6 already that like I was like hoping to see this year that like, he may be on the list or maybe a focus. And I didn't, and it's not even August yet. And I was like just surprised. I don't know. Maybe it's just the year and I don't know. Well,
even when it comes into like October and you think of like this big shift and stuff, and my cousin Mason has talked about it, and he doesn't run that many cameras, but he kills a lot of really big deer, and he always says, he's like, I think they're living under your nose more so than you think when you think that they're moving, because all of a sudden you don't get them on camera for a month or whatever it is. Like a lot of times they're still there, and there's the buck I killed on an opening day in 2021, I had this area littered with cameras. There was the hemlock side I was talking about. I had the bottom, and I had like cameras going up the run because they seemed to move a lot laterally on these hillsides. And they dumped the way the terrain was, and then they dumped down into this bottom. And I had like 4 cameras along that, or I think it might have been 7 cameras between the 2 ridges, and I'd get them on that one camera. It was like, if I didn't have that one camera out,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have known that buck was in there. Like, he'd hit the other ones maybe like twice a year, and it was just like, but he was more consistent using that trail. It's like you can be off just a little bit and totally miss it.
I agree with that. And how many times, like, I've got a lot of pictures of deer. Like, you think he's like, I have that deer a lot in October and November. But then I look back, it's like, oh, no, I did have him one day, like you kind of said, in August or something like that. Like, how far could he have really been if he, like, you know, like, is he living 5 miles away? I'm just going to run over there. Maybe. I don't know. Like, maybe. I know they've radio collared some of these deer and tracked them, and they do these excursions. But I don't know. Like, they may be closer a lot of times.
Yeah. And then, like, to give, like, an opposite example of that, my first archery buck I killed that's still my oldest. It was 9.5 years old when I was 18 or 17 when I killed him. I had pictures of him. This was in 2009, and I had pictures of him in. I had a picture of him in one area in the summertime, and then I killed him 4.5 or 5 miles away on November 14th. It was the last day archery season. That was when that season closed at that time, and it was a long ways away. And there was another big deer that we had filmed in this area in the summer back when we had the regular film cameras. It was like 2004 or 5. Yep. My first ever camera I picked up, no joke. My first roll of film, you know, there were like 12 photos or something that you get on that when you take it down to the place and get them developed. I got one for my birthday. I was 12 years old, and I put it out, and I got a picture of a buck that ended up scoring 176. and my dad was like, yeah, I do. It's hanging in my dad's basement. And my dad was like, thought for some reason that, like, I doctored up this photo of something. And he's like, there's no way this is real, because, like, I mean, that's still a very, very rare buck. But at that time, like, a 90-inch 8-pointer was, like, pretty dang good. And it was just like, what the heck? This thing's got points everywhere. He ended up getting killed the first day of gun season 6.5 miles away from where he was at in the summer. And now that, like, so that all to be said that there are, you know, these situations. And also at that time, though, in those years, our deer population was so freaking low. Well, I mean, I guess your population's really low, so that would kind of break that theory. But I was like, come that late November, like, those deer had to freaking run to try to find the next deer to breed.
So this is funny. I'm not abandoning that they have a shift. I'm not saying, I know that they definitely do. Like, some of them, 100%. I'm just saying I don't think that as many of them do as I thought, and that B, some of them that maybe do have a shift, maybe it's really like a minute shift, and you're just off the X, so you think that they're 10 miles away, but they're, you know, 1,000 yards away type of thing. So that's all I'm saying. But the other thing that I think plays into your rut thing is the last 2 years, I have got random pictures in the middle of the rut of, like, pushing 160-inch deer that I just have no idea where they came from. And it's like one and done type of thing. And up until the last 2 years, I almost never had that. And now I have it, so I'm like, oh, I guess that maybe that bonus buck or that mystery, whatever they call it, like, you know, people say it, I'm like, I guess it is a real thing. And I thought to myself, because I did never had it, I didn't really believe, like, that really happened that much. After I got the first one 2 years ago, I actually saw him the same day I killed that one. I was the one I killed in the afternoon. I was like, I bet he's not that far. I just am a little off. I went and tried to find that deer. Couldn't find him. Like, I spent a lot of time in the winter, like, trying to figure out maybe where I thought I found an area where it might have been. Like, okay. And it was a great area, but it was like all the same bucks that I already knew of. Just, you know, they were shifted. So, I don't know. Like, you just start to learn more and more and more about it.
You don't.
Some
don't
things
even try
are, like,
to look for those
hold
bucks.
true, but some things aren't as true as you thought they were. You know.
Don't even try to look for those random ones. There's this one that I called the mule deer buck. November 17th, he'd show up at like 3 a.m. Yeah. You know, so like not even like daylight, like middle of the night, one time 3 years in a row, right around like November 17th. This thing had just big split twos and just like gnarly looking. I'm like, where is he coming from? I spent so much time. I don't even think I even sniffed his ass once, anywhere.
I did it that year, but I don't do that again. I had another one. I actually think this deer ended up getting killed. I saw a picture of him dead. I'm like 90% sure it's him. But it was the same thing. I was just like, actually, I remember I was in Alberta sitting there, and I'm like, looking to sell pictures, waiting on a deer that didn't show up in Alberta. And I'm like, what is that thing? Where the hell did this thing come from? I'm like, what the heck is this? I was like, I should be home on that scrape. I shouldn't be sitting up here. But, all right, so I have a question for you, and I was thinking about this before the podcast. I think you've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of guys that hunt the mountains and the big woods from, like, the north to the south to even, like, the Pacific Northwest, like, across the country. What are some things that stick out that are, like, consistencies through? I'm sure everybody's a lot different, or a little bit different, but, like, what are some common themes that come back that maybe differs from what you hear on, like, the typical Midwest hunting media? Like, is there certain things that, like, keep coming up, like, and maybe you need to think about it, or maybe do you have them wrong? No? Okay. What are the things? Like, run through them, because I think, like, out of anybody, you're probably the best person. You've probably talked to more people in this realm from diverse and different backgrounds that all hunt similar type of, like, landscape in big woods.
There's two things that I feel like as a big woods mountain hunter that you cannot escape, and that is time spent in the woods and time spent in the same area more than one day. Like, I feel like there's so much, like, it's funny, it would be kind of clickbaity, but I wanted to do something like mobile hunting is overrated from the standpoint of, and the way I look at, and the reason why I say that is, like, and that doesn't mean you have to be in the exact same tree all the time. Sometimes you're manipulating a spot a little bit, whether it's wind or you're moving 100 yards here, but there's so much like, first sit's best sit. I think in areas, especially and I say I think, this is from personal experience and from the most successful people I've talked to over the country. This seems to be something that comes up more than anything, is it just takes time of being in places for deer to come through. When you find a good spot and going through, time that comes through it. When I talk to people, whether it's in the Pacific Northwest, whether it's, the Troy Pottinger types that are up in there, or you got the Nathan Killens in Virginia, you've got these people that I highly respect and look at and over. Yourself is one of them that does this a lot. We've talked about it, but is spending time in singular locations or areas over a longer period of time, because it's not the sexiest thing to do. It sucks to do it, but I think that is when a spot is good and a buck is eventually going to come through here, whether it's historical data, whether it's the terrain that dictates it. It's not being like totally sloppy with it, but I feel like that is and then I'll give one third one that's kind of a bonus, and I'll be interested to hear if you agree with this, but is during those rut times when you're sitting there, if you can't figure out the wind to be perfect, you still hunt it.
Yeah.
Of because there is so much swirling and stuff that goes. I mean, I think it's important to look at the thermals and look at the wind and understand how that all works. But there are things that are just difficult to explain and that are just going to happen in the mountains.
I remember one time, I was hunting actually that deer, this antler chipped there. And we were sitting there, and that spot has usually a really consistent wind. That's why I was sitting. Big reason I was sitting in that spot. But I remember it was one day we had like this shitty east like wind that was like kind of gusty and then would die, and like it was like just a miserable wind. And we were sitting there, and it was like dead wrong. And I'm like, all right, like it would gust. I'm like, okay. And then like it just started going dead wrong. And I'm like, man. I was like, I think we gotta. I thought to myself, I don't think we're killing this deer if he comes through right now. It's like that bad. Like it's just not gonna work. And I'm like, so should we even be sitting here? Like I don't think there's any chance. Like he's Like, it's not. I don't think it's gonna happen. So, I remember I got down, and I moved to the other side of that main travel route he was gonna be coming through. And like got out of the stand, I'm like, we'll just sit on the ground up here, whatever. Like, we got to be on. I don't think this is gonna work. So we get up there, we get set up, and literally the wind's going back the other way. So we just got back in the tree. And when we got back in the tree, it was like the wind was fine. All of a sudden, I'm like, what was that even? Like, I don't even know what to think of that. I'm like, probably just got to sit there. You know what I mean? Like, so I would agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't ignore the win for sure. And you just
no,
and you're not saying that at all. But
no,
yeah,
it's not being dumb. It's just like looking at it from the standpoint of like understanding that there's going to be gusts and things.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be blown. Like, if I think this is the area they're coming to, I don't want it 90% of the time to be blowing there by any means. But they can come from any direction, even in places where you think it's pretty certain they're going to come through here. That a big buck will just do whatever heck he wants sometimes and come through it. But I think out of the two biggest ones are people that leads to success is people that can find a way, whether it's their day job, their work, to put as much time in as possible sitting there, and that they don't give up, and then not bouncing around too much and chasing your tail. I think that those are the things that I've seen more than anything. One thing that I've used to help break up that monotony a little bit sometimes is like, if say you get like a really bad weather day or something that's there, maybe then you kind of make a little bit of a switch, get it some change of scenery, go do something, and then but maximizing that time in those good spots, because like it is hard when you like someone, like yourself, I'm sure is just like this. You have a bunch of good spots, and you're always thinking when you're in the tree that other spot may be better than the one that you're in. So it can be a little bit of a mental game.
Yeah, I think that's natural. I think that as you do it more, you get more and more confident and just believe in your decision, which is that's big. Like you gotta convince yourself. I always say, you gotta convince yourself, and you gotta learn, and then you can have a little bit of success, and then it's stuff starts to click, and then you're just can be super confident and decisive. I feel like I'm at that point now, where it's really I used to just I don't know. And I do that still, but it's because I truly don't I don't have enough information yet, and I haven't made a decision because I'm still waiting on a couple things. But once I have all the information, I'm all right, what am I doing this next 2 weeks or this next week, whatever. I'll sit there, I'll look over everything. I'll be okay, yeah, look at and I'll say, all right, that's the play. And then I just do it. And I just try not to doubt myself. I'm pretty good at that now. I never used to be like that.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. But I feel like I feel like if I had made a different decision, it wouldn't have been the right decision, because it's I was ignoring the highest odds thing. It didn't happen to work, but there was no evidence that said that other spot was better. It may end up being better, but there's nothing to point to that. So why would I have done that? I feel like I made a good decision based on everything I know.
And I think the one thing that I've had to start doing with that is when I'm sitting in the tree, I'll do a pros and cons of pros. Why am I here? What are the cons that are there? And I'll give you a decision where I made a move that worked out. 2022, I had mentioned earlier how it was really, really hot, and I was leaving for Alberta to go hunt the bow zone on November 5th, and it was November 4th, and I'm on day 4 or so, not seeing a deer. I'm in the same tree, and I'm up there, and I'm sitting there. I'm all right, it's noon, and I'm should I get out and make a move for the rest of the day? And I started looking through the pros and cons. Pros, historical data, this spot is really good.
Yeah.
Cons, it's a little bit later, as far as the dates, a little bit early to be here, but okay. But there was some activity then that had led me to believe that still could be good at that time. But other con, it was unseasonably warm. And then another con, when I checked cameras, I didn't even have does on camera. I was okay, something's changed this year. I don't know what it is, but there was enough things where like I was only relying on historical data at that point and not any real time or things. I was like, all right, I need to make a move. I packed up and drove like 10, 12 miles a different area. Went in. Last night I killed a buck, and it was just like, yeah. So like it was like that's where, but it was, and also having. I think this is one of the bigger things for me is having good people you can bounce things off of. When you're emotionally attached to something, it's harder to give that thought. You know, like Brett, if you were to come to me and you're hunting a buck and you lay out the data, you're like, this is, you know, what I've got on him. This is what I'm thinking, going through it. And say you've already been hunting him for 8 days.
Yeah.
And I can hear it in your voice. You're negative. You know, like, man, this is going on. But you lay out that information to me and I'm not attached to it. And I'm like, dude, you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Like, just keep doing it. Or I'm like, or you give information like, yeah, man, like that kind of sounds like it sucks. Where, like, and that's where like it's helpful having someone like my dad that I really respect as a hunter and respect his opinion, and then other buddies that I have locally that and they'll call me and do the same thing. It's like my dad will go through things, and I look at my dad as like one of the best hunters that I've ever known. And he'll come to me and be like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, what are you thinking? Like, you got it all figured out. Yeah. Just do it. And it seems so easy when you're not emotionally attached to it sometimes. Cause like, and it's always in those low times when I say low times, like we're hunting, like it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. But like when things aren't working out as they're planned to be. So
yeah, it just makes the wheel start spinning faster, and then everything.
Honestly, that's kind of my favorite part. Like up until that, like when you're like right there, but it's just like not. You're like, oh man, like like I like that part. It's like like about to happen. Like most of the time, like you just don't know.
You're every hour is an hour closer to you shooting your next 100%.
Buck. 100%. That's how it goes. I wanted like we talked. Touched upon a lot of stuff I wanted to on whitetails, which is awesome. But I want to talk a little bit quick about, do you kill 2 bulls last year? Yeah. So
I did.
What was it like looking back at like your evolution and your journey as an elk hunter? Did it go from when you started the podcast, just trying to learn about Western hunts, to the year you had elk hunting last year? Like, that's wild. Like to think about how far it's come and like, you know what I mean? Like, what was that like?
Dude,
surreal.
Yes, it was so surreal, and it's like it took me 4 years to kill my first bull, and then after that, it seemed like things were starting to click, and then I went and I had hunted in 2022. I missed a bull, I hit a bull, I was in bulls, but I was screwing up the moment of being close and actually making it happen. It felt like there was branches everywhere and I couldn't get an arrow through anything. And like, but it was funny. I thought about it while I was on that hunt, and I spent 21 days on that hunt in 2022. Like I spent almost the whole month of September just learning, and the amount of things you can learn in that time period is crazy. But I was thinking about, I was like, Beau 5 years ago would have dreamed to just see an elk where I was getting into them every day. Yeah. It was just figuring out how to capitalize. And it's like, it's enjoying that process and that evolution with it. And last year was just like just an anomaly of just like everything seemingly kind of working out. Now, like the first bull I killed, I got to hunt a private ranch, which was different than anything I had ever done before. And so there was plenty of opportunity as far as like unpressured elk for the most part to be able to hunt. The second bull was my traditional like DIY going out type of trip, and we killed 2 bulls on that second trip. My cousin killed his first bull, and then I killed mine on the last day of the hunt, and that was a 10-day hunt. But it was just like, it was so funny of like seeing how when those things worked out, of just, I don't know, just like I was actually getting opportunities of, being around elk. And I think it comes down to, and I didn't come up with this term, but Cody Rich, he has a Western hunting podcast called The Rich Outdoors, and he always talks about at bats. He's like, elk hunting, it's at bats, trying to get as many opportunities in the red zone as possible for one to work out. And I truly believe that's like, and then you start capitalizing on more of those opportunities because you can kind of, see how a situation's happening. And I think like from the standpoint of like capitalizing on those couple of trips, like I could, because like I said, I was on that trip in 22 that I was finding elk. I was in them just as much as I was hunting that private ranch. But like, you still got to be able to make it happen when.
So,
in the moment
what do
of
you
truth.
think the biggest reason? And obviously, there's probably different ones, and every scenario is different. But is there a common theme when it goes wrong? Why it goes wrong? Is there something you think you were doing that wasn't working that you changed? Or do you think it was just, I've done it so much and, just like a numbers game that if you do it enough, you're going to get a good opportunity?
I think it's a mixture of a numbers game. And then, because it felt like all those situations were different a little bit on what they were doing. But, okay, so like I'll give an example. In Montana, when I finally got a shot on this one bull, I was doing the same thing almost every day. And I'm learning that, like, okay, so a lot of times elk will feed down low and then they'll go up high to bed.
Yep.
But they work with the thermals in their face. So you can't just get out in front of them. Even if you know where they're going, you have to, like, and trying to chase an elk uphill, it's like you're running and you're sweating and nothing's really happening. But I got to learn that, like, they'd go and they'd bed and I'd try to get as close as possible. But like in this situation, this big bull would bed on this knob and then he had cows around him and then satellite bulls on the outside. So like I'd get just close enough that if a wind would shift that it wouldn't totally kill me or stay far enough away for that, but I could still hear him when he'd bugle in his bed. And when I start hearing more things happening in the evening, I try to predict and get into position. And I'd kind of shadow him a little bit. And then just waiting for them to make that mistake. And the way like you look that was in my head from someone telling me this before was like, you push 90% of the way there and let them do the 10% of the rest of like putting yourself in that position. And you need a little bit of luck or however you want to put it to be able to make that happen. Now, the last bull that I killed in Montana was like more of an open country spot and sock, and that's where that is a little more calculated as far as like how you're doing it, as far as chasing them. And I learned a lot about when to stalk, because you can see him bed and it's like right away you want to be like, all right, go in there and kill him. But then it's like, all right, the wind's shifting, thermals haven't totally changed direction yet. So like I'd wait until, I remember wanting it to be calm, but then it's so loud walking you can't get close enough to him. So then, but it's windy, but then you got to watch with your shot, but you can get closer per se. And I learned that I liked windier because it seemed to be more consistent.
Okay.
And I could maneuver that a little bit more. But that was a situation of just like, again, at bats, looking at elk behavior a little bit, understanding that I've also I guess one thing that I've learned is you have more time than you think when it comes to shooting most of the time. Elk knows their noses are pretty good. Their vision is not as good as their nose is. So like, if an elk's looking at you, you can typically draw on it while it's looking at you, and it's not going to just like take off like a whitetail would. They're going to be like, wait, what is that? A little bit. And just like understanding some of those situations and just being comfortable with your equipment and learning kind of what you can shoot through, what you can't, what the RP arrow is doing, pin gapping, yardages, like all of that stuff, I think helps with closing that deal and taking advantage of those opportunities.
So it's this experience. Do you feel like, I know it's a tough question to answer. Do you feel like now, I don't love my question, but I'm going to ask it, but I want to preface it with this. I'm trying to figure out how confident and how far along as an elk hunter you feel that you are, as I'm just curious, compared to like say whitetails. Do you feel like after these experiences you've had that you think you'll like going to start killing elk more and more consistently from now on? Like, do you think because I know there's definitely, like, for whitetails for me, there was like certain years where just like stuff was like, it clicked, and I'm like, this is going to be, I'm going to kill a big buck every year, or big bucks every year. Like, do you feel like you're at that point? Is anybody at that point? I'm sure there's some people, but, or do you think, how do you, I'm curious, like, where do you feel like you're at? You don't have to be humble.
That's a really tough question,
curious.
But I would say I feel more confident in myself than I ever did, but I wouldn't say that, like, I would say every year I go out, I plan on bringing back a bull, but like, I wouldn't, if you were to say, hey, Beau, I'm gonna put $10,000 on you, I'd say, hey, dude, you might want to invest that somewhere else right now. Like, I do feel a lot more confident, but there's still so many variables. The one thing I do like about elk hunting is you can manipulate the situation a little bit more as long as there's elk there, versus like, a lot of times with whitetail hunting of sitting there per se. But there's just so much there's so many variables still, and I am definitely not what I would consider a good elk hunter. I just think that I've experienced enough, and I've spent probably 70 days now in the field out there, that I've learned I'm way further along than where I started at. I feel like somewhere middle of the road. Mm-hmm. That's a tough one to answer.
Yeah, I know it is. That's why I said it wasn't a great question, but I'm trying to gauge.
I'm really good, man. Like, I'm freaking top notch.
No, I don't. Yeah, I just mean, like, no, I feel pretty confident. Like, I don't know. I'm just curious as to what.
I definitely have a level of, like, even looking in an area of, like, okay, I think this would hold elk, or this is. Yeah. I have more confidence, but not at the level I do for even whitetails.
More or less than turkey hunting.
Yeah, more than turkey hunting.
Well, I mean, because that's what I asked, because, like, I just know, like, for turkey hunting, like, I remember, there was a point where I just didn't, I don't know, like, I was like, if there's turkeys there, I'll kill turkeys. Like, I'll figure out a way to kill turkeys, right? Like, I have that confidence now. And I feel like pretty much like that with whitetail. If I have enough time to learn the area, I feel the same way. But I'm just wondering, like, I feel like elk is a different game, and I'm just wondering, like, how long. I know there's guys that probably are like that, but I don't know. I just, like I said, I haven't done it. I've elk hunted one morning because I had a tag, because I had to buy one in Montana to get a whitetail tag. I had to buy the big game combo. I was like, whatever, fine, because that was all that was left. And we happened to see elk, and I was like, all right, we can go after in the morning, because the whitetail I was hunting, I want to hunt them in the evening. So we chased elk for morning, and that was it. But so I don't have these. I'm just curious, because it seems like from what everybody says, elk hunting seems extremely hard, like extremely, extremely hard. And I'm wondering if there's ever guys that, like, it really clicks for them, and they're just, like, able to, like, go in on, obviously where you're hunting makes a big difference, but
I think there's still so many similarities, though, and it's the white, like that. I've talked to a lot of really successful elk hunters, and there are so many of them that kill on the last day. I think people quit early on elk hunting more so than they do whitetail hunting, as far as like, even guys that'll have 6-7 days to spend out west, by day 4 or so, be like, the weather was terrible, or there's people everywhere, and give these, talk these excuses in their head on why they should stop early. And I think a lot of, like, those really good hunters, and I think from experience, is like, I need to hunt till the last moment. I need to be at that glassing knob at first light. I need to be out there listening for bugles in the dark to try, if I'm not hearing them during the day, to try to locate them. Like, they just do those little steps that are more than the average guy. Like, it's just like from interviewing them, talking to those types of people, like, that's something I've definitely picked up on. And it's a grind, just like anything else. Like, those guys that are into it, a lot of them are taking the whole month of September, like serious whitetail hunters are with November of doing it, and they're consistent every year, but they're also putting a lot of time into to being able to do that. But I will, and Western hunters hate when I say this, but I think it's very similar to turkey hunting, but instead of the eyesight, you put nose on them. So like you put
that sounds
you
hard.
put the sense of smell on. Yeah,
it sounds harder.
It is really hard.
I always say if turkeys could smell, would never kill one.
Yeah, but they got eyes like a hawk, you know.
They
like do. I mean, like a turkey, I guess, because they're really good.
Yeah, but you just don't move. If you don't move, they still smell you. I think the nose is a bigger problem. Like I said,
but how many people? I don't know. How many people you turkey hunted with that can't stay still? So like, there's a lot of that.
I can think
when
of some,
Matt was with me. When Matt was with me and I shot a turkey, he just wouldn't quit moving. You know, so I had to shoot that turkey. I would have let him walk right on top of us, but Matt was, I'm kidding, but.
So yeah, what Matt was going to ask, what do you have planned for this fall? Do you have anything big, different?
I didn't draw any elk tags. So
really?
So I have no. I kind of shot for the fences on a couple, and I've had a couple of good hunts. I really want like awesome experiences. I tried for some draw tags and just didn't pull them. Yeah. But I also did that knowing that I have a moose hunt in Quebec. At the end of the same place I bear hunted with when I was talking to you guys, and I drove up. So I'm going up there end of September, early October to do that with my dad and my brother.
That's awesome.
And it's like a situation where we just rent a cabin and we just go hunt, and we have like a territory that we're allowed to hunt in, and just go do it. It's kind of like you go through an outfitter and you book it, but you have like an area that they have leased, I think, that you can, like a 10 square mile area that's ours that we can just go hunt for, that 2-week period. So we're going to do that, which should be really fun. But I did end up drawing a Nebraska whitetail tag in September that I'm going to go. I've never hunted whitetails in early September. That's new to me. So I'm going to go do that.
Nice.
It should be fun.
When's that open? The 1st, right?
Yeah, I'm going like September 7th or 8th. And I'm going with a group of guys. Josh from the Untamed is going with me too. So that should be fun. We're going to go out there and try to figure it out. And then after I get back, October will be Pennsylvania into the beginning of November. But I drew an Iowa whitetail tag.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've never hunted Iowa before, but I'm putting 2 weeks in. Like I'm spending 2 weeks out there. At least that's what I got booked for an Airbnb so far. And I'm going to go out during a lot of the prime of like here of that November 6th, 7th through the 22nd. And typically when I go down to West Virginia and hunt and everything, but like to me, it's just like that tag took me a while to draw. And it's like, I want to just go immerse myself in it and have fun and hopefully see a really cool Midwest rut.
Yeah, so that'll be a little different.
Are you willing to say what zone you drew?
I don't know if I want to say that.
That's fine.
I'll say it took a lot of points.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I drew a muzzy tag, so I'll be out there in December, January. Yeah. That'll be That's good.
That'll be something different for you. Yeah, that'll be cool.
That what did you think of Quebec?
That was cool, man.
Yeah.
I liked it, and it's funny. The area I was at, there was some rolling hills per se, and a lot of pine, but they were like logging some clear cuts, and it was funny. I looked at these trees that were coming up when we were bear hunting, and I said to the guide, I said, "Hey, those cherry trees?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "We call them Pennsylvania cherries." He's like, "They just showed up out of nowhere. Like they're not even normally there." Really? And they were growing, and it's like, dang. And I said, "Are there any whitetails in here?" And he's like, "Very few." I was like, "Man, they're cutting and doing some stuff." I was like, "Maybe there'll be some big old whitetail showing up in there too." But
I bet
I'm looking forward to it. It's pretty thick country. I mean, real thick
country.
So the moose hunting be interesting. I'm not really sure how we're gonna do it yet. We just met on it yesterday. Me, my dad, my brother, and we're like, most people go and they sit the lake edges and like those types of places and just sit.
Yeah.
I kind of want to like call and still hunt and
especially
move
that
a
time
bit.
of year. 100%.
Yeah. So like
10 square miles.
that's I got to scout the area out after I'd shot a bear down there. They let me go down and just walk it. So me and Johnny and a couple other guys just went and did a big loop through there.
So you went through the area you were going to hunt already? Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how rare is that you're going? Yeah, I mean, that's not
no
to be able to go.
I should have brought cameras. I was like, man, I was like, they told me I could, and I was like, I don't want to get into this game with moose.
Yeah,
let's just go hunt.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out a moose hunt the last few years.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, that's not the place to go to shoot like a giant bull or anything. Like I went to Alaska a couple years ago, but it's like, to me, I'd really like to shoot a moose, and it's just like I think they're so cool, and the fact that I can drive there and bring all the meat back.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's pretty cool.
Totally
Although
agree.
I started calculating like the cooler space that we need if we shot 2 bulls, I was like, man, we're gonna need like a tractor trailer.
Yeah. That's tough. Yeah, that's a big reason why I really want to kill one in New England. If I can ever find a way to get a tag. Because I can like do it myself, and I can like just bring the meat home, and like I could definitely hunt one up in Alberta in that general vicinity that we've been up to, either the Beau zone or one of the northern zones. But I'm just like, how am I gonna get all that meat home? Like, and like the bulls up there's some big ones, don't get me wrong, but like I think in general we have bigger bulls here, and I'm like, so for me it's like a meat hunt, and I'm like, well, if I can only bring, I mean, it's tough when you start bringing like 350-pound coolers on the plane. I mean, that gets crazy. Like, it's a lot to manage. It's really expensive, and it's kind of stressful because you're worried about this meat. So it's like, I don't know if I want to deal with that, but yeah.
Yeah. No, when I was in Alaska, when I went up there, there's a place called, I can't remember, but it's a transport company that takes a tractor trailer, literally, that's like a big freezer up through there, and they bring your meat back, and they do stops throughout the U.S., and you have to just meet up with them. Like, you put like $150 deposit before you go to save your spot, whether you kill or not, and then it's like $1,000 to get it back, which is expensive, but it's cheaper than trying to figure out how to do the plane route or shipping it. Like, it's probably the best deal.
Did you do that? You killed a caribou up there, right?
I killed a caribou, but I didn't kill a moose. I didn't see a legal one. It had to be 50 inches wide or 4 brow points on one side, and I couldn't determine how wide the bull was.
When did you do that?
The caribou or moose? 2023.
Man, I don't even remember that you were doing that. I remember you killing the caribou.
I spent 14 days dropped off at a lake there, and I called it was like hunting the rut for whitetails because there's so few of animals, but it was like in a really beautiful landscape where I'm looking, out over Alaska, but it was like sitting on the ground, and you get to talk with buddies because like you're looking out and you're kind of calling across the valley there. But it was, I mean, we saw a handful of moose in that time frame and 1 black bear and not another critter.
Shit, yeah.
Every duck that you could imagine, and like my hunting partner Ethan's a duck guide in Montana, and Justin, my camera guy, is like big into waterfowl hunting, and they're like, oh, it's a spotted haired Baganzer thing, and I'm like, I don't know, this is a duck to me.
Any moose around?
Sorry for any waterfowl hunters. I just don't know anything.
I
know absolutely zero when it comes to. I'm a very like. I have very few things that I focus on, and I would consider myself half decent at. The rest of the world, not much at all.
Cool. Well, that sounds like you got a great fall lined up. That'll be cool. Can't wait to hear how you do.
Yeah, man.
Man, that's cool. You got a good fall.
A lot of stuff.
Really? Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I think we got to get you up here soon at some point. I know there's a million things going on, but eventually come up and see this country.
I know. I was telling Matt.
Did you come through here?
No. I looked at it because I wanted to come up and do this in person, and it was like 8 hours out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, it's only like a 10-hour drive from where I'm at now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. However it worked out, I thought it would have been closer. But I was saying, even with John the other day, I was talking to him on the phone. I was like, I need to make a trip up there. I want to do a Northeast kind of tour and do some podcasts and hang out and maybe do some hunting or something. It would be fun. Anytime.
Well, maybe when you fill your Iowa tag and it's late November, early December. I think to come up and like be successful in like a short period of time, like you got to target that snow and try your hand at tracking. And I feel like the best time is like right around the first week in December. I think is like the most effective time in my opinion. Highest chance of snow. The bucks have like slowed down a little bit. They're still with does. Like it's a good time to kill them. It's right around like the end of the very last few days of November into like the end of the season there for gun season. So yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you on the next one.